All right, let's welcome back to Straight Fire, one of our best college basketball guests every year. He is savant, maybe strong. I don't know. Listen, the guy knows college hoops. He's got a new job at CBS Sportsline, picks. He's all over the NCAA tournament, which starts next week. Thomas Casale. Thomas, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's that time of the college basketball season where everybody who didn't pay attention when you were gambling and crushing in November, December, January, now everybody's like late to the party trying to play catch up. Oh, Duke is good. So
Yeah,
I don't know. We're at that stage, championship week. I don't know. Let me just hear your overall thoughts so far on the season. Is it a two-team race with Duke and Auburn, or is we're going to see some party crashers?
yeah, it's an interesting season. My thought for the last couple months is when we get to the Sweet 16, I don't know how many upsets we're going to see.
Hmm.
A few years ago, we kind of saw Baylor and Gonzaga on a collision course. They were supposed to play in the regular season. The game got canceled. Duke and Auburn did play. It was a close game, but to me, top to bottom, it's those two, then maybe Houston and everybody else.
Hmm.
They're just deep. They got and the thing about Auburn is this, for this week coming up, they were tired at the end of the year. You could see it. They were mentally tired. They were beaten up a little bit. My guess is if you want your best bet of the conference tournament, bet Auburn in their first game. They're going to annihilate somebody. They're fresh. They're going to be back to normal. And those are the two best teams. Obviously, the tournament, anything can happen. But I think once we get to that Elite Eight area, it's going to be favorites.
Yeah, everybody loves a good sleeper. What are the characteristics you look for? Everybody knows Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, these great sites that can help with the handicapping. But what do you look at? A lot of people are like, oh, you got to be top 20 defense. You have to be a top 10 offense. You got to have experience. Are there any things that jump out at you as like, hey, man, that's what I circle? Offensive rebounding, three-point shooting. What are some of your top characteristics?
Yeah, there's three metrics I look at for the tournament. I look at offensive rebounding because you're going to have games where you don't shoot well. Can you get second chance opportunities? I look at turnovers. Do you turn the ball over a lot? Michigan was doomed even when they were playing well. They've ranked towards the end of they turn the ball over a ton. They don't have a true ball handler. Can't win in the NCAA tournament because sooner or later one of these SEC teams is going to ball pressure you to death and you're going to lose. The other one that isn't sexy, but it's free throw shooting. Can you
Mm,
get to the line? Do you make foul shots? For example, Utah tonight gets to the line a lot. They shoot 63% in conference. So it's great that they get to the line, but they're not converting.
yeah.
But again, you're looking at close games, foul shots often, decide. So those are three metrics I look at. And you got to be able to make shots. I like St. John's, I do.
Yeah.
I like the way they play. I think they're going to give some teams trouble, but my guess is sooner or later they're not going to make enough shots to advance.
Yeah. I'm looking at the offensive rebounding rate. Texas A&M leads the country, and they're really good at free throw percentage rate. So are the Aggies a bit of a sleeper? They played in the SEC where, listen, man, the SEC, if you guys haven't been paying attention, the SEC's been arguably the toughest conference I can remember in many, many years.
Yeah. And my guess is a couple of these teams when they get out of the SEC, I don't know who they are yet. We'll have to see the brackets and how they play early, but your Old Misses, your Texas A&Ms, your teams that don't have to play Auburn, Florida, and
Yeah.
Alabama every night are going to be tough. Missouri doesn't have a great defense, but they play a style that can bother teams in the first couple rounds. I'm talking to the Sweet 16. Missouri's not going to win it all. But I think that's a good angle is instead of laying the points like with Auburn and Alabama early on in the tournament, look for some of these second tier SEC teams that would have been competing for a conference championship in a lot of other places.
Oh, that's interesting. But you drill down on a team like Texas A&M, and my gosh, Buzz Williams' team cannot shoot at all.
Hmm.
327th in threes, 271st in free throws. Like they're an offensively challenged team. That being said, their D will keep them in games. And if you look at their resume, again, I'm not picking on Buzz Williams, but like here are their last few losses: Florida, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Mississippi State. Those are all top 45 teams in KenPom. Texas, Kentucky, Alabama. Like they're going to smash some of these middling teams who people are like, look at the record. A&M not that good. But Texas A&M, they're going to be able to surprise some people, right?
Yeah, and one of the things you got to look at, metrics are great, but you have to look at the entire picture. One of the things Texas A&M struggles with is those SEC teams that really pressure the ball
Mhm.
and bother them defensively. There's not like a lot of teams in the Big Ten who do that. Like there's so you got to look at what the every the thing that's hard about the NCAA tournament is you got to start over. Like things that happen in the regular season don't always transfer over. So you got to be weary to like look at Texas A&M and M and how they played against Florida or things like that. It's whoever they're playing that day. Are they going to kill that team on the boards? Because if they are, then their 3-point shooting probably doesn't matter. But that's a perfect example of a team is you got to wait for the bracket and see who they're going to go up against. There might
Yeah.
be some favorable matchups where they can make a run.
Now you said the Big Ten doesn't pressure the ball much. Everybody all of a sudden loves Tom Izzo's Michigan State squad. Again, if you look at the full body of the season, they have not been great, but they are streaking big time since I believe it's February 1st. They're one of the better teams in the country. Where are you on Izzo and the Spartans?
So I'll give you the good and the bad. The good is this is a type of Tom Izzo team he usually makes a run with. They
Mm,
play good defense, they rebound well. I think he really likes this team. I think there's been a couple teams recently that haven't been Tom Izzo kind of teams. This isn't
gotcha.
one of them. So I think that is the good. The bad is I think the Big Ten is really bad.
Mm.
And I think by the second weekend, you're going to see how bad it is. I don't know how many of those teams are going to be hanging around. I don't think
Wow.
Purdue's any good. Maryland, I like their starting five. That's the one team I kind of like. Michigan State, obviously the best team, but I just think a lot of those Big Ten teams are going to have a short stay in the NCAA tournament.
Wow. So if you think the Big Ten's in for a rough tournament, what does that mean for the ACC, which is, if you remove Duke, pretty rotten? I don't know. Where are you on? Like, I don't even know if North Carolina has enough in them to make a run to get in, but like ACC's even worse than the Big Ten, right?
Yeah, I could see Clemson doing some damage. I think they're
Ooh.
a pretty good basketball team, but overall, I mean, they're really down. And it's hard, listen, Duke is good. I don't want to say Duke isn't good. They beat Auburn at home. They have some nice wins, but it's they almost have Gonzaga syndrome in recent years where the conference is so bad and they've just been beating up on everybody. They had one tough road game against Clemson and lost.
Mm.
So, I mean, it's not I'm going to fade Duke in the NCAA tournament, but I think there's more of a question mark about Duke than Auburn.
What about John Shire? Any concerns about him? We know he's had some letdowns, shall we say, in the postseason. It seems like they struggle against kind of rugged, tough teams. I remember getting bounced by Tennessee and then NC State. Are they more physical this year? Obviously, with the best player in the country, I believe in Cooper Flag.
Yeah, and the thing about, listen, unless it's football where it's fun to rag coaches all the time, I try to be open-minded about these younger coaches. I mean, I always remind people there was a time when Villanova fans were saying, geez, I don't know if Jay Wright can win the big one. Well, he did. He won the big one a couple times. So he's still brand new. Listen, Jim Boeheim was at Syracuse for 50 years and won one title.
Yeah.
Let's give the guy at least a couple more years. Now, listen, if this team loses in round two, then yes, then now we have a narrative maybe that there's a problem. But I'm
hmm
not ready to close the book on Shire yet.
In the NBA, a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, the Cavs and the Thunder are so dominant. They might go to the finals." And I'm like, guys, we've seen this a billion times. Some teams are built for the regular season in the NBA, right? I mean, the Cavs are motivated. The Celtics just won the title. They're less motivated. You look at OKC, they got bounced in the second round. Look at them this year. Awesome. But we get to the playoffs, it's like a different sport, a lot more half court. The whistles probably is a bit of a different whistle. Do you think the same applies to college basketball? And if so, who does that impact the most?
There's one team, and when I was on your show last year, I said Alabama is a team you should fade. Now, here's what happened with Alabama. They drew Charleston in the first round. That was my biggest bet of the college basketball tournament because it was a perfect matchup. Then they got North Carolina, and I was like, it set up well for Alabama last year. They played teams that want to run with them. And when you want to run with Alabama, good luck to me, Alabama, and I don't want to, listen, the Ravens are a great team, but the Ravens are a team that hammer inferior opponents in the regular season. Then they'll get one or two wins where you're like, this is the year, this is the year. And then they go to the postseason and it's the same story. Alabama's a good team. I don't think there's a ton of teams that can beat them, but they are really set up for the regular season where they
Mm.
just beat up on inferior opponents. I think that is the most interesting team heading into the tournament.
Interesting. So Mark Sears, where are you on the little point guard? He hit an amazing shot. Well, nice runner to beat Auburn on the road. He is one of these. Let's see. He's 23 years old. He started out at Ohio. This is his fifth year in college basketball. Pretty much, we know guards kind of rule. Is Sears good enough to take over a game and help Alabama make a run back to the Final Four?
I think he is, but he's so unselfish. I've seen multiple times this year where he has a drive to the hoop and he passes it.
Mm.
And I think I think I've heard you mention too in the with NBA players, like it's great to be unselfish sometimes, but sometimes you got to be the man.
Yeah.
I don't want LeBron passing in the final seconds. I want
No.
LeBron
Yeah.
taking the shot, right? So I think that might be like his unselfishness is great in an overall team environment.
Hmm.
But what you're saying, when you have to take over a game, I don't want him to be so unselfish. I want him to take the
Yeah.
shots.
I want to go back to St. John's for a second. They're one of the best stories in the sport. Obviously, the great coach Patino with the white suits. But and we talked about this with Jeff Goodman last week. This team has some offensive struggles. They are one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the country. We know the three is the great equalizer. We've seen teams like a Kentucky go 3 for 25 and lose because they can't make threes. St. John's, you seem to like them. Um, I'm just curious. Where are you with the team that can't shoot? And oh, by the way, they play tenacious defense. If they get some early whistles, does it get in their head? Do they get frustrated? Because they're a team. It feels like to me could be out in the first round, could be in the Final Four.
Yeah, listen, let's talk about two teams we just mentioned. I would rather see St. John's play Alabama than Texas A&M. Because Texas A&M is going to be one of those grinders, right? Where
Mhm.
Alabama, you're going to get layups, you're going to get open shots. You don't have to stand around the 3-point line and get stifled offensively. So I actually think that would be a better matchup for St. John's because we saw one team kind of slow Alabama down, and it was Chris Beard and Ole Miss. That they
Mhm.
were able to kind of frustrate them and suffocate them. St. John's isn't going to hold them to 60, but if you hold Alabama to 75, 80, you got a chance to win. So
Yeah.
I think those are the matchups you're looking for. I don't want to see St. John's play a team that can take advantage of that poor 3-point shooting. And I'll say this, it's hard to say this with transfer portal and everything, but my guess is if I had to make it, Rick Pitino is 1 year away. I wouldn't want to be anybody
Wow.
who has to play St. John's next year because he knows where his weaknesses are and he's going to go out and fix those. I think they're going to be scary good next year.
Wow. Interesting. So buy St. John stock regardless of what happens in this tournament. I kind of like that. Let's go to disappointments. Baylor has one of the best freshmen in the country. The kid Edgecombe. They've got what everybody believes to be a good coach in Scott Drew. I don't get it. They've lost 4 of 6. Do they have work to do to get into the dance?
Yeah. So here's the thing, Jason. We didn't know how the transfer portal and all this stuff was going to work with different coaches until we're finally starting to see it. I'll tell you two coaches who have struggled with it: Scott Drew and Bill Self.
Mm.
They don't have good teams. They have a couple of good players, but I watch Baylor and I'm like, man, when they won the national championship, remember that defense? Remember how suffocating those
Yeah.
guards were? Where's it been? They just I don't know. I don't think he has a good mix of players. I was kind of high on Baylor coming into the season.
Mhm.
They are a lot worse than I thought they were going to be. I don't see how this team makes a run if they get in.
Interesting. Losing LJ Cryer. Did they have LJ Cryer?
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought Jeremy Roach would be very good, the former Duke point guard who feels like he's been in college since like the 90s. Um,
Yeah.
he hasn't been great. Hey, speaking of transfers who hasn't been great, dude, I need you to come clean with me. The Connecticut Huskies picked up who I thought was one of the best point guards on the West Coast, Aiden Mahaney from St. John. I'm sorry, St. Mary's. Um, Not only has St. Mary's been incredible this season, they got better, but he's barely playing at UConn. And then you hear Hurley come out this week and say, yeah, half my team's entering the portal. Do we know what happened with Aiden Mahaney? Is there stuff behind the scenes I'm not aware of?
The only thing I can think of is he's got the Brady Hoke syndrome. Listen, Brady Hoke was a great coach at like Ball State and San Diego State. Then he got to Michigan and it was a disaster. That's a thing sometimes, right? Like we don't know how these guys are going to perform. I mean, look at the schedule UConn plays, right? Out of conference. It's a step up. St.
Yeah.
Mary's doesn't play that schedule. And listen, the team they do play, Gonzaga, it's not good like Gonzaga is dripping with athletes, like
Yeah.
the kind of athletes he's going to see at UConn. So that would be the only thing I would say is sometimes these transfers are going to be hit or miss because they're taking a step up in class.
Yeah, he was taking as many threes in like a game for St. Mary's, 10, 11, 12, 13, as he's taking in like a month with the Huskies. Now I hear he didn't want to commit to playing a lot of defense, which is not great for a guy like Hurley. By the way, where are you on Hurley? He's got back-to-back titles, but I don't know, Thomas, this like anger, the yelling, and it's just a little unseemly, no?
Yeah, it's odd. Like it's one of like he's already proven himself. He's won back-to-back
Yeah.
championships in the most dominant stretch I've ever seen. That games haven't even been close. You think that like I get like having a chip on your shoulder, but I don't know. It's an odd some of the things he said this year to officials and like
Yeah.
being the best coach. It's weird. Like I don't know. He doesn't have to act that way.
Yeah, almost like he's just a jerk. All right, I need a sleepers outside of the Ken Palm top 40. So that rules out like Arkansas, Ohio State, Creighton, whatever. Outside of the top 40, I'm just trying to target some teams that maybe I want to circle when the brackets come out. The problem is I don't know if a ton of these teams are going to make the tournament. Indiana has some work to do, right, to get in?
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you a team I like, and I bet them a couple times here in the last week. If I think they're going to be in is Xavier.
Hmm.
They lost a ton of close games early in the early middle of the season, and they had injuries. I think they found themselves now. That's a team who can score, they can shoot. So I think they're going to be interesting. I'm just looking here down the line. Trying to find a good one for
Well, they
you.
got seven straight wins, and they got a good coach in Miller. Tough draw in Marquette at the Garden on
Yeah.
Thursday. Yeah,
The
I don't know I haven't paid that close attention to Xavier, but I will flag it certainly. I think South Carolina in the SEC. Now they would need a major run. They need to win the SEC tournament, but at times, man, this team has looked decent, right?
Yeah, I hope they don't look decent tomorrow because I like Arkansas
Oh,
against
you're
them.
on
But
Arkansas. Okay, yeah. Well,
yeah,
Arkansas
no,
probably smashes them.
that's a team they're in a transition year in a tough conference. They'll be better next year. The other team, if you're looking outside the top 40, I think they're probably have to win a couple games in their tournament is New Mexico, only because
Hmm.
of the guard play. They were a hot pick last year, remember? And Clemson smashed them
Didn't they have
in the
Mashburn's
opening
kid or
round.
something?
Yeah. And
Okay.
they still have a really good guard. They rebound the ball well. People might have been a year too early on New Mexico.
New Mexico. Yeah, I would need to drill down on them a little bit. It looks like they're not a lock for the tournament.
No, no,
Um,
they still got a little work to do.
yeah. I am just curious. NCAA tournament, obviously I think it's the greatest event in sports every year, better than the Super Bowl because it's a month. The only thing that tops it is the World Cup for me. But here's my thing. There's all this chatter about expanding the tournament, Thomas. I Here's my thing. I like expanding the college football playoff,
Right.
but we're going from like 4 to 8 to 12, in that area. That's fine. Even 16, I don't think it's the end of the world. Is there any way to do the NCAA tournament expanded without it being really, really dumb?
I don't think so. Listen,
Yeah.
this was the people can say they didn't like the expansion college football playoffs. This is the first time in my lifetime we crowned a real champion.
Yeah.
2 and 4 teams isn't crowning a champion,
Right.
right? We have enough teams in the NCAA tournament. This would obviously just be a money grab, but I'm sorry. I don't need to see Rutgers and Syracuse in the NCAA tournament. I just don't. We have enough teams. You get that first four team every now and then who makes a little run that's fun, but it's a perfect system. I don't think you have to mess with it.
Oh, speaking of Rutgers, I'm glad you brought them up. They have two of the best freshmen in the country. Everybody was excited. Ron Harper's kid, Dylan Harper, and then Ace Bailey. Both of them are going to be top five, at worst, top 10 picks in the draft. And Rutgers has been awful. I don't understand it now. I haven't watched enough Rutgers to know. I just monitored them early. I was like, these guys are losing to Kennesaw State, Princeton, and I at that point I knew okay they're in trouble. I mean, what the hell's wrong with these guys? I mean, they got two of the best players flat out in the country, and they can't win games. What happened there?
You want to know my theory on college basketball? Anybody who ever hears me analyze games, you never hear me talk about players. I just don't think they matter that much. You
Oh,
can't have like listen, Cooper Flag is different. He's obvious. I'm talking about in general. Both these kids are good, but they don't have anybody to play defense. They don't have anybody to rebound. They don't have a three-point shooter. So they didn't construct their team right for college basketball. It's great to have two good players, but if you're giving up 85 points a game, they're not going to score enough. And I just think college is different than the NBA. You have to construct it a certain way and have different kinds of players, guys who are never going to play at the next level, but do things in college that you need to be successful. And Rutgers has two good players and a bunch of guys who probably shouldn't be on the court.
yeah, no, that's a great point. All right, we can wrap up with this. So a couple years ago, who was it that went? San Diego State went to the Final Four. There was
Yep,
another team in that tournament that got in that was not
FAU.
FAU. Okay. Last year, NC State with an improbable run. Listen, Thomas, I know everybody's going to lean chalk, but there's got to be someone. Now, obviously, when the draw comes out, but even when the draw came out, nobody had NC State. Nobody had San Diego State. People didn't have them. I need some sort of look the hell out. They're coming out of nowhere. Whether it's a Creighton, UC San Diego, I don't know. There's got to be someone out there who you like more than the market.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. I gave you Xavier. I think
Xavier.
that's a team that if they get hot offensively in the right bracket, and one of those SEC teams I was talking about that could be dangerous outside of the conference is Georgia. I've
Oh,
liked Georgia all year. They got a couple of guards who can play. They defend. They rebound. So, and my other one out of the SEC is Ole Miss, when they play their best game, has shown they can go and beat the premier teams in the SEC. And I think that out of all the teams, once they get out of that conference, if you're a one seed and Ole Miss is in that 8-9 game, I would be concerned because that's a team that can pull a big upset.
wow. All right. Listen, it's all about the SEC. I don't know if are you multiple bracket guy or just a one bracket guy?
I do one main one and then I do a couple others.
Right. Okay. So I like to spread my seed. I'm like 10 bracket guy, enter as many contests as possible. And I think this is the year where you could theoretically have like three SEC teams in the Final Four in multiple brackets, and maybe hit 66%, 2 out of 3 there.
Yeah, again, I've gotten burnt in the past falling in love with the SEC because I'm an old UNLV guy. I
Oh,
love athletic teams who press and get out in transition. But this year, I think these teams are legit good. The ones at the top. I mean, you could see a Kentucky get upset or something. If they don't play defense, if they end up playing Yale or somebody like that, sure. But I think overall, it's definitely the best conference.
yeah. All right. Thomas Casale. Find his stuff, CBS Sportsline. A lot of picks. He likes Arkansas today, obviously. As we're recording this on Tuesday, he likes Arkansas playing on Wednesday. Thomas, thanks a lot, man. Great luck in the tournament.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.